Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins. Now, what is the bigger story? Kirk Cousins' decline or Sam Darnold's resurgence? And Zay, if you want to go, the mic is yours.
It's kind of wild. Because I feel like the biggest story is neither of these, but I'm gonna pick one for the sake of the argument. I think the Sam Darnold resurgence is a bigger story than Kirk Cousins' decline because he's coming off an Achilles injury. Him just playing this long in the season is a miracle in its own, and you have to give him a full year to kind of get reacclimated on the field. So then next season, I think you'll see a more revitalized Kirk Cousins. Sam Darnold, his resurgence. What people were talking about the Vikings when JJ McCarthy went out was this team was going to be another lottery pick team. They're going to draft high. They'll probably get Travis Hunter or whatever else. And this team has no real shot at winning anything this season, let alone division, let alone games against the division. And even to the point where teams were saying they were the last place team in their division. And Sam Darnold himself completely shocked his ability to play football, his ability to navigate through that offense, find the open guys to the point where we're seeing Jordan Addison having great games. Justin Jefferson didn't score a touchdown for 2 months, and the Vikings were scoring touchdowns left and right. TJ Hawkinson hasn't even been featured in his offense, and this team has been scoring left and right. And that's all due to Sam Darnold's ability just to find the receivers and get these guys open, find open guys and get touchdowns. We all knew Sam Darnold was a good thrower throughout his career, but we didn't know he could do this in a winning fashion with the Minnesota Vikings in the way he's doing, in the way he's able to now scan the field and make the right throws. We didn't see this on the Jets. We didn't see this on the Panthers. We didn't even see this in the preseason in San Fran. And he's able to do this at a high volume with games on the line and putting the Vikings in an opportunity to really shock a lot of teams in the NFC. So I think the biggest story here is the Sam Darnold resurgence, especially heading into a contract. Oh, this is a contract year. He only had a 1-year deal. Go into free agency where the Vikings have to make a tough decision between putting JJ McCarthy to start right away early in his career, or do you re-sign Sam Darnold on a 2-3-year deal and allow JJ McCarthy to develop into the quarterback you want him to be for the future? So it's going to be interesting what the Vikings decide to do in this upcoming offseason. And I'm going to talk about the biggest story, in my opinion, in my next lap.
Yeah, for me, the biggest story, and Zay, you made some valid points. Obviously, the center of the offseason, I do believe, is going to be centered around Sam Darnold's future with the Vikings and what potentially is going to be the next route in regards to his contract and all those fine-tuned things. But look, before I even make my way to the opposite hash, I would like to give Sam Darnold some credit for his resurgence. I would like to give Kevin O'Connell a lot of credit because look, I've been ignoring this man a little bit the last couple of weeks because I've been drinking the Sean Payton Kool-Aid and the Mike Tomlin, believe it or not. And I do think that Sean Payton and Mike Tomlin and Sean McDermott and Kevin O'Connell, all four guys, you can make a legitimate argument on why they should win Coach of the Year, right? And I think what impressed a lot of people, especially with Sean, is that he's doing it with a rookie quarterback. I think what impressed a lot of people, including myself, with Mike Tomlin, is that we didn't have high expectations for the Steelers. And look, they only lost 3 games. But man, Sam Darnold for about 5-6 years, the first 5 to 6 years of his career, was the worst quarterback in the National Football League consistently year to year. And now, arguably, we should be having MVP conversations. I mean, clearly it's Josh, then Saquon, and then Jared. And then after Jared, you probably go Sam Darnold. And that's because Kevin O'Connell has been, scheming explosive plays down the field, and the supporting cast around Sam Darnold has been immaculate. And when you look at the game on Sunday, 10 of his 13 pass attempts, at least 10 air yards, was completed. So he's pushing the ball down the field. I want to play the clip again that I just played earlier because he was flashing a lot of mobility here. Let's watch this play right here. I mean, look at this mobility. Look at Sam go. Oh, man, Sam. And then Justin is wide open because of that mobility, that scramble that allowed Justin Jefferson to be open. You think they're going to lose sight of Justin Jefferson? No. He got open because Sam Darnold's elusiveness on that play in particular. He's playing great ball. But the reality is Kirk Cousins' decline is a bigger story here because right now we are having those Michael Penix questions that obviously is present. It's been present from week one. It died down a little bit when Kirk Cousins was playing well, but now it's only amplified even further right now with the terrible last three games that Kirk Cousins has put forth to the American people. Now, the reality is, wasn't Kirk Cousins the biggest free agent this cycle? It wasn't Sam. Sam got 10 years. I mean, excuse me, $10 million. Okay, 1 year deal. It wasn't Russell Wilson who got $3 million. Excuse me, $1 million, and Sam got 10. It wasn't those guys, but yet the Vikings are 11-2, and the Steelers are 10-3. Kirk Cousins is the one that got $180 million. Now, what's going on with the Falcons right now? And that's the reality of the situation. So I expected more. The Falcons expected more from Kirk Cousins, and clearly he has not been playing like a $100 million man. And he's thrown 8 interceptions in the past 4 games, 0 touchdowns in the past 3 games, and clearly a guy who in Kevin O'Connell's system last year was playing some of his best ball. That is now Sam Darnold, and he is on his way to being a potential backup for the rest of his career. To me, that's a bigger story. That's Kirk Cousins. Say what you want about him and him not being a playoff performer, but we have known him to be consistent, for the most part. But now he's about to be a backup. He's about to be Jimmy G. Okay, he's about to be one of these old backup quarterbacks that we don't hear much about anymore. He's about to be Sam Darnold, where he was. Okay, so yeah, to me that's a bigger story. Zach, you up?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question because both of them are pretty big stories. And look, I was one of the only people that said going into this season, my one concern with the Falcons was Kirk Cousins and the fact that he's an older quarterback coming off a major injury, and you have a guy in Michael Penix that's ready to play right now. He's not just a rookie quarterback, as that interception was just brutal, just as many of Kirk Cousins' interceptions have been the last few weeks. But he was a guy that's 25 years old. He's ready to play right now, and you didn't draft him to sit on the bench. He's not some sort of developmental project. And in the Falcons' last 4 games, Kirk Cousins, in each of the 4 games, their 4 losses combined, he's thrown 0 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. When was the last time Kirk Cousins went 4 straight games without throwing a touchdown? I don't think that's ever happened up to this point. And the Falcons are fortunate because they play in a pretty manageable division in the NFC South. Everything is still right in front of them. But all of a sudden, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a team that they beat twice this season, have leaped them in the standings. You thought that Atlanta, considering they had a few game lead, they had a tiebreaker, you thought the division was theirs. It's not. They're in big trouble right now. And I'll tell you what, there are still some reports about what the Raiders are going to do at quarterback this week. For those who don't know, the Falcons both these teams are going to be on Monday Night Football next week. There's 2 games going on at the same time. One of the games is Bears-Vikings, and the other game is Falcons-Raiders. And the reason why I'm actually pretty intrigued by that Falcon-Raider game is because as of right now, it's looking like the Raiders starting quarterback is going to be Desmond Ridder, the former Falcon, who was the guy that the Falcons drove out of town to get Kirk Cousins. And Aiden O'Connell might play, he might not. His status is still 50-50. But I'll tell you what, as much as I've wanted Atlanta to move on and bench Kirk Cousins for Penix, I don't think last week was the week to do it, because I think throwing Michael Penix into a game against Brian Flores' defense in his first start, that just wouldn't have been a recipe for success, considering Kirk Cousins practiced against that same defense last year. He has plenty of familiarity with the Vikings and going up against that defense, but it didn't matter because he was still terrible. He didn't get the job done. And I'll tell you what, if the Falcons lose to Desmond Ridder in prime time on Monday Night Football, then I don't think they have a choice. They have to make a move. And I do think Atlanta could still win the division, but they got to make the change at quarterback immediately. So look, this has been something that's been on my radar since the preseason. I said a reason why I thought Michael Penix didn't play that much in the preseason was because I thought Atlanta didn't want to create a quarterback controversy because they knew deep down that Penix was the better player. I think we're seeing that right now, and they would be better off making the quarterback change. However, I think the bigger story for me is the Vikings, and here's why, and Darnold's resurgence. I think early in the season, the Vikings were having success, and a lot of it had to do with Brian Flores and his blitz packages. And obviously Sam Darnold has refound success with Kevin O'Connell, but they struck a little bit of adversity. They lost a couple of games. Darnold wasn't great in the middle of the season, but for the past few weeks, this guy's been playing elite football. Throwing 5 touchdowns in that game was super impressive. And this Vikings team, I'm telling you, there's something about them that's just special. And I think they're ready for a big playoff run. This is a team that just 2 years ago, everyone was calling them Fugazi. They were calling them fraud, and they were right because they were just finding a way to win games that they had no business winning. And I don't think that's the case this year. I think this team is much better than the team we saw 2 years ago go one and done and lose to the Giants in the playoffs. The quarterback has a lot to do with it. The coaching has a lot to do with it. The defense has a lot to do with it. I think the fact that Jefferson went 6 weeks without catching a touchdown and they were still finding ways to win games is a super impressive stat. It's a reflection of how good this team is. And we're going to get into the Eagles in our next segment. There are plenty of concerns about Philadelphia. The Lions, as great of a season as they've had, they've lost 1 game the entire season, but the Vikings have only lost 2, and they still have to play one more time. The Lions better be careful. They have the Bills this week. If they lose that game, there's a good chance we could be tied for first place in the NFC North between the Vikings and the Lions. Green Bay has been playing very good football. People, I think, take them more seriously than the Vikings as a legitimate contender, but I think the Vikings are better than Green Bay. They went into Lambeau Field already this season and beat the Packers pretty handily. And in the AFC, I mentioned that I think the Chiefs and the Bills are on a collision course in the AFC Championship game. I don't think that's the case in the NFC. I think we should be taking this Vikings team more seriously as a legitimate NFC contender. I think they have a legitimate argument as the most balanced team in the NFC because their defense is just healthier than Detroit's right now. And Sam Darnold deserves a lot of credit. I think this team is no joke, and I would not be surprised at all if we find them in the Super Bowl when it's all said and done. I think they're that good.
All right. Look, this is my last point. Because we are a little bit headed for time. We still got a couple more topics. I just would like to say this. Credit to the Vikings, man. Credit to Sam Darnold. Credit to Kevin O'Connell. Credit to Brian Flores and the defensive side of the ball, even though they took a step back lately, not compared to how they started the year. But I've just been impressed with how they've been able to incorporate on the fly. Jordan Addison missed some games. He came back, and it took him like a game or two. But now, clearly, that chemistry with him and Darnold is as good, like Justin Jefferson and Darnold, right? It's just as good. And T.J. Hawkinson was out for half of the season and clearly did some chemistry there. So to work these pieces back into that offense that was already flowing from week 1, to me, is impressive. And it speaks a lot about the structure that they have on offense. And I just think, to end off, the reason why the Falcons are a bigger story for me is that it's not like they have issues that are costing them the game. Yeah, sure, their defense is not good, but Kirk Cousins is outrightly losing them the games with his turnovers. And to me, he cannot have a Sam Darnold resurgence. His career is done if he gets benched. This is not a young guy who, all right, he's young. Maybe we'll sit him for a couple years, and then he'll have this resurgence that Sam Darnold is going through, that Geno Smith had, that other quarterbacks had. No, if you get benched, you're done. Your career is over. And with his contract, it's going to be hard for me to see him having a future as a QB1 in the NFL beyond this year. And from what I heard, Michael Penix has been looking good in practice. Clearly, they saw enough where they had to sit him in preseason because they didn't want to get him hurt. I won't be shocked if we see Michael Penix this year, especially if they lose next week. So to me, that's a bigger story.
Yeah, I think for me the bigger story, and the reason why I say I didn't believe this was neither of these stories with a bigger headline. It was more about the development style of Kevin O'Connell, because this isn't the only quarterback under Kevin O'Connell that has developed into a fine-tuned machine that has assisted in the Vikings winning a lot of crucial games, big games, throughout his tenure as a head coach. And I think that's the biggest story here, because now you have to put him in the same light as people talk about Kyle Shanahan, how he's the quarterback guru. Kevin O'Connell is in that echelon of conversation, especially the way he has revitalized Sam Darnold. And we can only imagine what he's going to do for J.J. McCarthy when he's fully healthy, ready to go for the long term. He's going to make J.J. McCarthy like a stud. And everyone hated J.J. McCarthy coming into the NFL because they said he wasn't ready to be a quarterback. He wasn't ready to play efficient football out of Michigan because of the lack of throwing the football in that Harbaugh system in Michigan. So it's going to be interesting what Kevin O'Connell continues to do for these young quarterbacks. So we have to remember, Sam Darnold is still a young quarterback. I believe he's 26, 27. Like, he's a young guy. So his tenure in the NFL is still pretty long. If a team was to give him 5-6 year deal, not saying it's going to happen this year, but I'm saying down the line, he has a long time in the NFL still being so young. Him and Penix are damn near the same age. So it's going to be interesting what happens here for the future. But that's why I felt like that was the biggest story, because Kirk Cousins, very disappointing season. Very disappointing season for the Falcons, who have a bevy of talent on that team. But he's coming off an Achilles injury. It takes a while to get reacclimated on the football field, let alone learning a new system that he's able to play 100%.
My guy dropped 500 yards on Tampa Bay. I mean, he was playing well. It's just he's having a stretch where he's turning over. I mean, you look at that interception that I played. That's not an Achilles injury. That have nothing to do. Let's get this clip. This has nothing to do with the Achilles injury. That's a bad read. That's a bad read right there.
Read. And look at that Chargers game. Will, I don't know if you have any tape from that game, but the throws in that game were worse.
Exactly. So that has nothing to do.
He's playing low confidence. And that's the football he's playing. A new system. He's coming back from injury. He's giving all he got. It's just that he's not the same Kirk Cousins that was out there.
That combined with the fact that you got this rookie whom they drafted in the first round, all right, unexpectedly breathing down his neck. He's feeling that pressure. But Zay, I would give you credit for that point about Kevin O'Connell, and I'll end here, Zach, if you want to, bring us home by all means. If not, we'll move on. But the point that you made about Kevin O'Connell, he has a golden opportunity beyond this year to really cement himself as that Kyle Shanahan. Clearly, he's from the Sean McVay tree, like a Sean McVay himself, because what he did with Kirk Cousins last year, best 2 years last year under Kevin O'Connell. Sam Darnold clearly is having his best year. And if JJ is the future and he's able to do that with JJ, we're going to call him the quarterback god. And that's a good place to be at.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think he could do it this year because I think this team is special and he's in the process of doing it right now. Again, I think when it comes to the NFC and the overall power structure of this conference, you have Detroit, who's been great from the start of the season, but I thought watching them on Thursday night against the Packers, that was really the first time where I really noticed, I think this team misses Aiden Hutchinson. They don't have a guy on defense that could just get to the quarterback and completely blow up a game. The Eagles, we're about to talk about them. They have their concerns right now. And I just think this Vikings team is built to make a deep playoff run. And if they do with Sam Darnold, Kevin O'Connell is going to get that credit this year. And I really do think that this Vikings team deserves more respect. We should be taking them seriously as, not just a good story. Credit to Sam Darnold. He's had a great year. No. This team could get to the Super Bowl. They could compete with Detroit. They could compete with Philadelphia. Their roster's so balanced. They play with a certain swagger. You see the celebration after they pick off Kirk Cousins. They're doing the white chicks dance. There's just a certain aura and a certain vibe with this team. They're well coached. I think they're the real deal. And I do give them a legitimate shot to come out of the NFC and represent that conference in the Super Bowl. And I think more people should start to talk about them that way.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.